Have you ever found yourself living inside a conversation that never actually happened? Maybe it was late at night, lying awake in bed. Maybe it happened in the shower, or while staring out a window. Your eyes fixed on the distance, but not really seeing anything at all, and suddenly you're no longer in the present moment. In your mind, you finally say all the perfect things you couldn't find the words for before. You win an argument that ended months ago. You make someone truly understand you at last. Or you become a version of yourself that feels far more confident, powerful, and compelling than the person you are right now. It all feels so vivid that it almost seems real. And then you come back, leaving behind a feeling that's difficult to put into words, partly satisfied, yet strangely empty. If this feels familiar, you might assume you're simply daydreaming too much. But the truth is, these inner scenarios are not random. Behind them lies a remarkably subtle psychological process. A quiet way the mind helps you cope with unfinished experiences, unresolved emotions, and the versions of yourself you're still trying to grow into. And what's fascinating is that the very thing that once made you feel safe can sometimes become the thing that keeps you at a distance from your real life. The first thing to understand is that you're not simply daydreaming. When people think of daydreaming, they usually imagine random thoughts drifting through the mind without any clear purpose. But what's happening here is far more complex than that. You're not just watching a story unfold. You're creating an entire parallel reality. In that reality, you're the writer, the director, and the main character all at once. You know exactly what the other person is going to say. You can hear their voice. You can see the expression on their face when you finally say the thing you've always wanted to say. Everything is so detailed that at times it feels even more vivid than real life. But that leads to an interesting question. If these scenarios aren't real, why is your brain willing to spend so much energy creating them? The answer is that the human brain has a deep dislike for unfinished things. You've probably experienced this yourself. Someone says something that bothers you, but it's not until hours later, while washing dishes or getting ready for bed, that the perfect response finally comes to mind. The problem is, that moment is already gone. But the brain doesn't like open loops. It doesn't like experiences that feel incomplete, so it takes you back there. Only this time, you say exactly what needed to be said. This time you win. And that's only the surface of what's really happening underneath. To understand what's happening, we need to talk about a fascinating system inside the brain known as the default mode network. You can think of it as an application constantly running in the background of the mind. When you're focused on work, solving a problem, or actively engaged in a conversation, this system steps aside for a while. But the moment you relax, while taking a shower, lying in bed, or quietly watching people pass by, it begins to come alive again. And for some people, especially those with vivid imaginations or minds that naturally think deeply, this system almost never truly goes offline. It gathers old memories, lingering regrets and unrealized desires, then weaves them together into different versions of the same story. But here's the interesting part. Your brain isn't doing this to torture you. It's trying to learn. It's trying to rehearse. It's trying to prepare you for possibilities that may lie ahead. In fact, many of the scenarios you replay in your mind are not acts of escape. They're rehearsals. You imagine a difficult conversation with someone you love. You picture yourself saying no to an unreasonable request. Or you see yourself remaining calm and confident in a situation that once filled you with anxiety. In a way, your brain is preparing for the future before the future ever arrives. By revisiting these situations again and again, it creates a sense of familiarity. And when the real moment comes, you're less likely to be caught off guard. That's why imagination can sometimes make you feel more confident. It allows the mind to practice before it performs. But this is also where another problem begins to emerge. Because the line between preparing for life and replacing life is far thinner than most people realize. And this is where things start to become more complicated, because there is a very thin line between preparing for life and replacing life with imagination. At first, the scenarios in your mind help you feel more prepared. You rehearse a difficult conversation. You imagine how you would respond in a stressful situation. And that can genuinely be helpful, but sometimes the brain goes further than necessary. You've already said everything you wanted to say in your mind. You've already heard every response the other person might give. You've already won that argument dozens of times. And then, when the real opportunity appears, you say nothing at all, because part of you feels as if it has already been completed. The same thing happens with dreams about the future. You imagine yourself succeeding, being recognized, becoming the best version of yourself. The feeling is so rewarding that sometimes it unintentionally replaces the motivation to take action in real life. This is a truth that can be difficult to accept. Sometimes the thing keeping you stuck is not failure. It's the victories you've already experienced too many times in your imagination. But if you look a little deeper, you'll realize that behind most of these imagined scenarios lies a very basic human need. The need to feel in control. Real life is full of uncertainty. You can't control what other people think of you. You can't make someone understand you instantly, and you can't turn back time to change what has already happened. But the world of imagination is different. There, you control the entire script. You know exactly what happens next. You always have the perfect answer. You are always heard, understood, or finally able to get what you want. And if you've been through periods of feeling powerless, ignored, or unheard, that sense of control becomes even more appealing. It's not a weakness. It's simply the mind's way of trying to create a sense of safety in a world it cannot always control. The problem begins when you spend too much time in the realities you've created for yourself. Because the brain doesn't always clearly distinguish between emotions that come from real experiences and emotions that come from imagination. You can feel angry because of an argument that never actually happened. You can feel disappointed because someone doesn't match the ideal version of them that you've created in your mind. Over time, the gap between expectation and reality grows wider and wider, and that's when the scenarios that once helped you feel safe begin to create disappointment. Not because imagination is wrong, but because real life never unfolds according to the script we've already written in our minds. So, how do you step away from these scenarios when they begin taking up too much space in your mind? The first thing is not to force yourself to stop thinking about them. The more you fight a thought, the more likely it is to return with greater intensity. Instead, get it out of your head. When you notice yourself replaying a conversation or imagining the same situation over and over again, write it down. Even a few lines can be enough. This helps the brain recognize that the information has been recorded and no longer needs to be replayed continuously. Next, ask yourself a very simple question. Is this scenario preparing me, or is it protecting me? If it helps you take action in real life, keep it. But if it only helps you avoid fear or disappointment, it may be time to face what you're avoiding. And finally, come back to your body. Notice your breathing. Touch the surface of a table. Listen to the sounds around you, because the mind can go anywhere, but the body is always in the present moment. Perhaps those imagined scenarios helped you get through some of the most difficult periods of your life. They offered comfort when reality felt too cold. They gave you a sense of being understood when no one was truly listening. And there is absolutely nothing shameful about that. But remember, those scenarios are only drafts. They are a place to prepare, not a place to live forever. Because real life is always waiting on the other side of that door. It's not perfect, it can't be fully controlled, but that's exactly what makes it real. If you saw yourself in this video, share the thing you find yourself replaying most often in your mind in the comments below. There is still so much about the mind that we have yet to fully understand, and that's what makes this journey so fascinating. Thank you for being here today. If you'd like to continue exploring the hidden corners of psychology with me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.